Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Conspiracy Theory Iceberg. Today we're going to be going over chapters or tiers 5 and 6, right? So we got, 11 topics in overall to discuss today. Max Spiers was a famous conspiracy theorist, and this is insane. So he's from the UK, right? And he claimed that he was a part of something called Project Mannequin, where it was like, even though it was in the UK, it was like also kind of sponsored by the NSA from the United States. And this dude claimed that like he was part of some program to where he was kidnapped as a kid to end up being some kind of like child super soldier. I don't know if it was like some kind of like, brainwashing, sleeper agent thing or whatever, but that was one of his many claims. And one of his main things that he said was now that he's an adult, he wants to like be a whistleblower and just talk about this. And again, it's called Project Mannequin, according to Max Spiers. And that's essentially kind of the intro to Max Spiers, but there's a lot of kooky stuff to unpack with him. He also mentioned stuff about crazy like UFO projects and technologies that the governments of the world were already aware of but hiding in secrecy. He went on to say that we knew about alien races. I mean, just all of your crazy conspiracy theories just packed into one dude, claiming that he had it straight from the horse's mouth because he was a part of these special experiments, right? So at some point in Max's adulthood, right, I'm so sick of this shit. Listen, if you are some type of whistleblower, if you know something, can we please agree? Can we agree to stop announcing, I am about to tell you guys groundbreaking, earth-shattering news every single time? What happens? What happens every time? They die like the next day. Every freaking time. Can we stop doing that and just like sit on it, build it up, really refine the information, and then just kaboom, just drop it. Just make like a burner Twitter account and just kaboom, just drop pages, videos, whatever. But all this, like, bro, you're putting a target. Can we stop? Okay, I'm done with the ranting, but you get what I'm saying, right? It happens every time. I'm about to say something groundbreaking that's gonna change the world, and then all of a sudden they just immediately get suicidal. Come on. Anyways, he did that. He came out, I think he told his mom, he was like, if something happens to me in the next 48 hours, it's because they knew I had the truth and I was about, like, bro, just drop it. What the hell are we doing? Anyway, so he says this to his mom, right? And he says, if anything happens to me, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, he's at his friend's house, right? He's chilling at his friend's house. And all of a sudden he's on the couch and he just starts vomiting black goo. And he's dead, of course. Like, he's dead. He vomits black goo and he's dead. Now, whenever they looked at him, they said that he had like high levels of certain drugs in his system. I can't remember if it was like oxycodones or hydrocodone. It was something that he had, just like a lot of pills or something like that in his system whenever they did the autopsy on him. So, yeah, that attributes to it. Now, I don't know. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not going to pretend to be a medical professional, but I'm curious if you're a nurse, a doctor, or anywhere in the medical field, have you ever heard of someone vomiting black goo, I guess, in any overdose cases, or just in general? Have you ever heard anyone vomiting black goo? Let me know in the comments below. Now, of course, because of the fact that they said that they found drugs in his system, people just kind of ruled out that this dude was basically a crackhead. You know what I mean? On that smack, talking that goopity goop, that blah, blah, blah. Doesn't know what he's talking about. It's all hoo-ha, phooey, and whatnot, right? So that's essentially what like the mainstream media kind of pushed out as the narrative. However, of course, it's a conspiracy theory, so there's always other angles that people are going to find, right? So one of the main things that people talk about is the coroner. Essentially, it was just a lot of mishaps and a lot of things were going sideways when it came to the autopsy, to make some people even wonder how credible it was to say that he died from a drug overdose. So there was heavy criticism about the entire thing because the coroner himself pointed fingers at the Polish police. By the way, I know he said he's from the UK, but he was at a friend's house in Poland. So the coroner basically said that like the whole thing was just incompetent and it was a mess because they halted the initial investigation. So yeah, they halted the investigation for some reason. They kind of just like pumped the brakes on it, and the coroner himself like criticized him about that. And he was like, why are y'all like letting this go cold, seemingly on purpose? And if I look like I'm shivering, that's because I am actually cold in real life right now, because this is fucking cold. According to the coroner himself, his initial verdict or whatever was that he died from an overdose and intoxication. This is kind of funny, but he said that like his frustrations were with the police department because he knew that since Max was a conspiracy theorist, that them kind of dragging this out was only gonna lead us to where we are. You watching this video right now about him. So he was pretty mad. I forgot the coroner's name. Let me look at my notes. It's Christopher Sutton Maddox. And like that was his heavy frustration and criticism, because he essentially said, you know, y'all are doing a sloppy job and this is just going to add fuel to the fire. Not to mention there was conflicting information as well, because initially I believe the Polish police actually said that Max died from natural causes, which I think is hilarious, because I don't know how many people are out here vomiting black goo. I don't know how natural that is. If that's how we die, then let's go back to transhumanism. I want to live forever. That's not how I'm not trying to go out. I'm not trying to go out like that. So let's do this transhumanism shit. Let's go. Now, this is also a little bit more credible. I don't want you to think that the overdose is kind of like some made up stuff. Max has a friend named Monica Duval, and Monica Duval essentially said that before Max had like crashed out on her couch, he took like 10 pills, and I forgot what they were called. Shit, bugs, you know how it is. I forgot what they were called, but they were kind of like the equivalent of Xannies, I think. So I guess it wasn't codones, but Xannies. But anyways, dude had a cocktail inside of him, and I don't know, I find that crazy. Like, I think it's crazy to know or even witness your friend take 10 Xannies and just, you know what I mean, like be cool with it, like not even try to like say, oh my god, like, you know, even if you want to be that friend that doesn't want to like force him, but you immediately call 911 like, bro, we gotta get this dude's stomach pumped, you know what I mean, like something to just let this dude like pass out on the couch with 10 Xannies in him. The hell are we doing? What kind of friend are you? But yeah, I mean, this case is wacky. Now, I'm not 100% sure of Max's condition, because whenever they talk about him taking the drugs, they specifically mentioned that it was pneumonia medicine. So I don't know if he was like coming down with something or had pneumonia. I don't know. And the entire reason he was in the area in the first place is because he was actually speaking at some type of convention. This was back in like 2016. And also, shit, man, this case is so weird. So yeah, there were levels of oxycodone. I feel like I'm going back and forth on that part. Sorry, y'all. But yeah, they're talking about there were levels of oxycodone in his system as well as Xanax. So I don't know. Like, nobody knows, right? He died of natural causes. He didn't die of natural causes. He threw up black goo. He overdosed, intoxication, Xanax, oxycodone. Like, it's all over the place. But this is the kind of stuff that the coroner was getting frustrated with, and then he's going back and forth with the police, and again, it just adds fuel to the fire. Like, what the hell happened? Why can't y'all get on the same page about this? Why were y'all slow to the investigation? Like it's just so many compounding questions, and I don't know how true any of it was, right? I mean, dude was saying crazy claims it sounds like somebody on pills would make, but overall, yeah. So yeah, for the most part, that's Max Spiers. And it's just, you know, speaking again to the confusion of this entire, you know, case, right? He still said the thing that he said to his mother, you know, before he left for the convention, right? He still said everything he said. He still mentioned, you know, if something happens to me, you know, look into it. You know, they know I'm getting on the trail. I'm getting close to truly exposing it. Because according to Max's philosophy, you know, it wasn't enough to just say he was a part of the program. He was trying to connect dots with people that he allegedly knew from the program, and trying to put these people together to try to like show his work almost, you know what I mean? It's like showing your work in math. It's like you can show, you know, that you came up with this, you know, answer, but you got to show your work. And he was trying to do that. He was like, I can tell you this is the answer, but I got to show you how this is all linked together so you believe me. And according to him, he had all this documentation, he had all of this stuff, and he was about to blow the lid off and then throwing up black goo. Now, the one other piece I do want to add on to this I thought was interesting is there are people online, and I mean, you can take this with the grainiest grain of salt, right? But there's people online who claim that whenever they try to look into the Max Spiers, rabbit hole, that weird stuff starts happening to them. And I mean, yeah, so it's weird. It's like a conspiracy theory that gave birth to a conspiracy theory. So now it's people out here getting paranoid, claiming that whenever they try to look into all the claims Max Spiers made and his death and all this other stuff, that, I don't know, I guess they were getting gang stalked, or, weird occurrences were happening that didn't seem like coincidences. It's a whole rabbit hole with this Max Spiers stuff that may lead to all of the crazy schizo stuff he was saying. So, yeah. Acoustic Attacks speaks to the experimental weapons, or I guess at least the validity of experimental weapons that use sound waves for various different technologies. I'm going to be kind of honest with you. I don't really know why this is on the conspiracy theory list. And I told you, I cover some of these topics because they're not really conspiracy theories. Like, they're just true. Now, I will say the conspiracy theory list is a little bit older, so maybe that's why, for example, for the longest time, people didn't believe that weather control was a thing, but it is. There are certain tools and certain techniques called cloud seeding and whatnot. Like, yes, we can control the weather to a degree. I don't think we can generate hurricanes, but at the same time, who knows? I don't know. But anyways, I digress. I did want to say that yes, acoustic attacks are real. Essentially, there's different technologies and they do different things. They're different purposes, right? And some of them just do a great job at directing sound. Some of them are literally, it's almost like you can beam a voice inside of someone's head because it is so laser focused on where those sound waves get pointed to. So that is one thing, but there are many other type of utilities for it as well. So most of these acoustic weapons, they call them LRADs for the most part. Most of them, they're kind of like turrets almost. Like, you kind of like have handles on the side and you kind of swivel it and aim it in a way, but most of the time it looks like some type of dish, right? And they mostly do the exact same thing. Some of them are slightly different, or like the effects are slightly different, but I'll just name some of them because I wrote them down specifically, right? So forgive me, I'm gonna look at my phone really quickly, but there are certain ones like the Hyperspike, which was manufactured by Ultra Electronics, and they can be used as both communication and deterrence. So like I mentioned earlier, they can literally beam, voices in your head that say, hey, don't go over there, hey, this is restricted property, or whatever they want to say. But then if you don't listen, then it turns into a deterrent, and that deterrence usually is like some kind of disorientation. Like, the decibels get so loud, if they wanted to, they could bust your eardrums. But there's other ones such as the Scream, developed by Israeli military in the 2000s, and this one causes nausea and dizziness. So like I said, a lot of these, they deal with your eardrums and they deal with just overall rattling sounds around in your head. It can cause you to get disoriented, you're all wobbly, you know what I mean? You can't really stand up straight. It's like you get dizzy all of a sudden. Some of them even cause nausea. They can make you vomit. They can make you queasy. And it's so interesting because, like I said, you can just point it. So you can literally look and you can see people reacting to it, and you can see somebody just standing here being normal while like 5 feet to the left, this other person's over here like this and shit, and then you're like, what's happening? And I think there was even a video that went viral a while back. It was like all these people in the streets, and they were just loud, right? They were just like super loud in the streets, and then all of a sudden everybody at the same time, just like everybody got quiet and they all ducked. And the reason why they all ducked is because they said it sounded like a plane was about to fly and like crash into them. So everybody ducked, literally thinking there was a plane, and it was nothing there. So this is one of those things, like, it also adds to another conspiracy theory. I think it's Blue Beam. I get them mixed up. Blue Beam, the one where they say there's going to be like a, fake alien invasion. And this goes into it with like, drones and projections and sounds and beaming things into your head and things into the sky, blah, 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 whatever. But this also goes into it. But, like I said, when it comes to an attack, it doesn't necessarily have to be an attack that disorients you. It can be an attack that deceives you as well. It's just for deterrence or maybe slight control in just a short burst of a moment, right? Now, with all that being said, there's kind of a grandiose one. It has its own conspiracy theory, and I figured I would just combo this in right now. It's called Havana Syndrome. Now, this one's, it's a little bit different. It kind of fits acoustic. It kind of fits something else called DEWS, stands for Directed Energy Weapons. So, it's a little bit different. And I'll explain why. Now, again, this isn't 100% confirmed because it's still a very mysterious thing. So, Havana Syndrome speaks to something that happened in Havana, Cuba years ago. I forgot when it started, maybe 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. But it started in Havana, Cuba, and it mostly affects politicians. This is where it gets weird, too. It either affects politicians, if not politicians, like their very, very close loved ones, right? Like, immediate family, wife, husband, sons, daughters, whatever, whoever's kind of living in the house with you, really. But what they started saying was, like, whenever politicians or ambassadors, whoever would go to Havana, Cuba during that year, I think there was like conferences or something like that they were meeting up for, they would be at these hotels, right? And whenever they would try to go to bed, mostly bed, they would start hearing these weird sounds. And the sounds ranged. It would be like thumping sounds. It would sound like crickets. It would sound like drills, just power drills or whatever. And they didn't know where they were coming from. They were like, what is this sound? And one of the freakiest things about it is they said whenever they heard this sound, Leaf almost hit me in the head. Whenever they heard these sounds, they got this like dramatic, super dramatic, like overwhelming sense of terror and fear inside of them, so much that it made them jump off or out of their bed. But here's where it got freaky for some of them. They said whenever they did that, the sound went away. And that's what started leading people to believe this has to be some kind of thing, like I mentioned earlier, like it's something pointed like a turret, right? Because it would only be kind of where your head lays at, like where your pillows are, on your bed. And that would lead these people to believe that it had to be some kind of attack. And they were getting gaslit. They were like, oh, it's crickets, and people were like, crickets? You think I don't know what a cricket sounds like? You think hearing the sound of a cricket would make me think I'm about to die? Like, these people said that they were feeling like they were about to die just from hearing the sound alone. So much that, like I said, it spooked them. It spooked them to the point that they jumped off the bed like there was like a bug or something in the bed. Like they jumped off of the bed, away from the bed. Now, what makes the Havana Syndrome case, and this is why I say I think it has to be different than an acoustic attack. What makes this one so different is some of these people ended up having long-lasting, like, health conditions behind this. People were saying that they had brain damage. People were saying that all of a sudden they're like super sensitive to light. Like even like right now, they couldn't even be outside like this without having those, like, those like glasses you get from like the eye doctor. Holy shit. Those glasses you get from the eye doctor or whatever, right? Like after some kind of like surgery, or they put those eye drops in and you got to wear those. Like people have to wear stuff like that permanently now. So many different issues were going on with people, and that's what made me think I think it's a direct energy weapon. So another allegation about the whole, whatever Havana Syndrome thing is that it was some kind of direct energy weapon, and they were beaming microwaves into people's heads, and these microwaves were like bouncing around in people's skulls, and that is why they thought they were hearing sounds, is because they were literally hearing like the waves like reverberating or bouncing around in their head, and that's why it sounded like certain things like drills and thumping sounds and like crickets or whatever, is because it was their brain literally being slowly cooked, like by pinpoint precision. But overall, to a degree, yes, these acoustic attacks do exist in both applications that you can literally Google, like I mentioned earlier, the Scream, Ultra Spike, and I think it's a few other names as well. Like, you can just Google them. They exist. But then again, there's also other things that are still secretive, like the Havana Syndrome. Like, to this day, no country, no government has, like, taken accountability for this. And what makes it even more freakier is like so many governments have been hit by this. This happened in Havana, Cuba, right? But so many other governments have been hit. Like there have been victims from Chinese governments. There have been victims from Russian governments, U.S. governments, like a bunch of different governments. And it has spread out since then, from it not just being in Havana to it's been in other countries as well, and other embassies and whatnot. So it's a crazy concept. Yeah, man, that's like one of the few downsides to getting into politics, like potentially getting your brain microwaved by somebody, something that nobody seems to have the answer to. Go figure. Yes, the Panopticon. I like the Panopticon. I'm not going to lie to you. I like this one. So the Panopticon is essentially kind of a prison, but I want to give you just a little bit of backstory about how we got to the Panopticon. So I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. I think it's like Foucault, something like that. Foucault. Essentially, he made something called the Panopticon, and it was like a revolutionary prison layout. And essentially, the way it works is there is a huge tower in the middle of the prison, and all of the inmates' cells surround the tower. But the tower itself, it has like a window at the top of it, like all the way around, a 360 window. And the way it works is if you are a prisoner, you cannot see into the window, but you know for a fact that they can see you. And it gives you this philosophical paranoia of feeling like you're always being watched, because you really can't tell. You don't know if you're being watched or not. You just know that there's a tower there, and you know that there's guards in there. And it gives you this perception of, since I'm watched, I need to watch what I'm doing. And the whole idea is to make people behave, or basically self-police themselves, just from the sake of paranoia. Believe it or not, George Orwell's 1984 was actually inspired by the Panopticon itself, which, I mean, if you know 1984 at least a little bit, like you don't even have to read it. I mean, you know enough, right? Just from memes and how people talk about it in our conspiracy theory circles, right? So, I mean, when you think about that and the Panopticon itself, it all just kind of snaps together as like the perfect layers of, you know, paranoia and government overreach, right? Now, what I think is funny that I also wanted to bring up about Michael Foucault as well, I just, reading into this was crazy. So this was in a book that he wrote about a plague at the end of the 17th century, I believe. And he talks about how each street, listen to this, he talks about how each street would be partitioned, and the city would be on lockdown with somewhat of an appointed guard or a leader on each street, prohibiting people from leaving town, even mentioning that this appointed leader would stop by each house so that all of the members of the house can show themselves in the window. And I mean, it's just crazy. And the irony of it is that many of us, of course, would consider that as, you know, first of all, kind of 2020, right? But it's not ideal. You know, it's not ideal to be confined in your house like some type of lab rat, and you have to show your face in the window to show people that you're still alive or someone hasn't died or whatever in your house. And you can't leave your street unless it's for appointed reasons by the, you know, and approved by whoever the appointed leader or guard of the street is. Now, here's what I think was interesting. From the government's perspective, they consider that scenario a utopia. So do with that information as you wish. Now, the reason why, of course, the Panopticon is on the conspiracy theory iceberg in the first place is when it comes to the level of paranoia, when it comes to always being watched by the prison guards, you know, that's how people feel about current technology, right? I mean, you know, I'm sitting here in nature, right? In, you know, the wilderness, but because of this little thing right here, I'm always connected in one way or another. There's a microphone on it, there's a camera on it. I mean, I'm looking at a camera now, but you know what I mean. There's a camera on it, there's a microphone on it. My GPS, my location is tracked right now. If anybody was smart enough or tech savvy enough, they could find me or you at any moment, at any time, in any place. And that is something that people, you know, I mean, first of all, I don't want to think about that every second. That kills any day, right? But that's essentially what the Panopticon is saying, is like, since you are always being watched to some degree, you're always being listened to some degree, you always have to watch yourself to some degree. And I mean, it may not even be that bad, but what it does is it makes it to where, since you're always in some state of paranoia, you watch what you say, you watch how you say things, because you don't know what you could say that could get you followed by some government official. So, you know, it's one of those things that's so conditioned in us at this point that you don't even realize how much you're probably, like, you know, watching what you say. But that's the Panopticon. Not only is the Panopticon something that is incredibly realistic and happening all around you, but again, like I mentioned, right, it's certain things that happen in your everyday life that you may not even be aware of that are happening to you. So not only is the Panopticon a thing, but there's something even called Panopticonism. I think I said it right. Let me make sure I said that one right. Panopticism. Okay, Panopticism. So Panopticism is a thing, right? And that's essentially almost like, I guess, a philosophy or just a method of doing things under the scope of Panopticon. So, for example, I don't know if some of you guys knew this, but this is a real thing. Did you know that, like, some of the security cameras you see are not even security cameras? Like, they're fake security cameras. That's the thing you can buy. You can buy fake security cameras just to make it appear as if you are being watched. Because again, when you think you're being watched, you don't want to do certain things sometimes. So some stores, some places actually do have fake security cameras. Some of them are even the ones where, again, it's just like the Panopticon. It's like that little black dome. You know what I'm talking about? And they hide the security cameras inside of them. Some of them are like that. It's literally an empty black dome and there's nothing in it. Nothing at all in it. But you don't know that, and you didn't think about it, did you? You just decided to behave because you believed you were being watched. And that's part of what it takes, right? Which should let you know and understand that, I mean, although we do have this technology and you can be listened to, you can be tracked at a moment's notice by the FBI, CIA, blah, 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 whoever, at the same time, it's still incredibly difficult to track everyone. So they make you police yourself. It's a philosophical thing. So, no, not philosophical, psychological shit. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it. And by the way, that's something called deterrence theory. So if you want to look deeper into deterrence theory, it's a sub-umbrella under panopticism. And of course, that's, you know, panopticonism, basically. Yes, accelerationism. Accelerationism to me is a very, very interesting one because it could be something that we're currently experiencing or not. Who knows? You tell me. So accelerationism is essentially a philosophy. And by the way, there's like kind of branches of it, if that makes sense. But it's a philosophy that says that, one, the best parts of humanity come after we build back better. Yeah, I said that. But on a serious note, the best parts of humanity come after we have some type of collapse, and it forces us to bring out our best, and we end up coming back and we end up building something stronger, better, and more innovative. That's essentially what accelerationism is. It states that if we know that to be true, right? If we know that whenever we have a crumble, and we know that crumbles are inevitable, right? You know, all good things must come to an end. All parties must end, right? You know, all kingdoms fall and new kingdoms rise, right? It happens all the time. So since we know that this is going to happen, and if we see that trend happening, right? If we see that something is starting to fall off, like a government is starting to slowly, you know, stagnate or, you know, decline, why keep walking around on that limping leg, right? Crash it. And that's the whole thing. Accelerate the crash because we know that we can build back better. And that's essentially what accelerationism is. And not only that, but it even has roots in communism, right? And it says specifically, right, in order to achieve communism, we need to accelerate capitalism by boosting or essentially enhancing all of the bad parts of capitalism. So whatever makes capitalism suck, we need to crank that up to 100, and then whenever that happens, it causes some type of economical collapse, and and then communism can rise from the ashes. Again, I'm not making this shit up. You can go look it up yourself. But that's essentially the main definition and the main meaning of accelerationism. It has communistic roots, and to a degree, it can be applied in multiple ways. You know what I'm saying? Some people say that they believe that that needs to happen to us, and this is kind of what rich elites believe, because once we are hungry enough, we'll do anything, right? We'll do anything, and we'll accept anything as long as we can get back to the status quo that we once appreciated or liked. So that's what makes it interesting to me, because some people could argue that we are currently in some type of form of accelerationism just because we have a garbage economy right now, right? At least in the United States. And I feel like this type of conspiracy theory would pop up anytime we had a recession, because, you know, again, it's part of it. That's an element of it, is an economic decline. So people be like, oh, is this it? Is this the accelerationism? Is it happening? Another form of accelerationism actually has roots in racism, and it's actually linked specifically to white supremacy. And you can look at someone like Charles Manson. Although most people don't look at him as a white supremacist, part of Charles Manson's whole thing was, what was it called, like Helter Skelter or some weirdo stuff like that? But he was trying to incite a race war. I think people forget that about Charles Manson, and that actually is a form of accelerationism itself. Is it says that there needs to be an ethnic cleansing at some point, right? But in order to get that ethnic cleansing, there has to be a spark. And there needs to be something to accelerate towards the ethnic cleansing, and we need to do it by causing some type of incident, by murdering some type of group of basically brown people. Brown people, you know, whether they're black, you know, Latino, Asian, whatever, right? But that's another form of accelerationism mentioned, you know, earlier. It has different branches, and that's just another branch. All in all, accelerationism, like I said, it's a tricky one, right? Because, you know, you could make arguments that it could potentially be happening right now. And then again, all of a sudden the stock shoots up, bloom, bloom, bloom. Everybody's got money, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, fears subside. The Ummo Case, buddy, oh boy, the Ummo Case. This is an interesting one. So listen, man, there's a lot of crazy alien and UFO stories out there. The Ummo Case is a very weird one, and it has multiple layers. So the essential summary is in like the 60s, right? I think it was 1966 specifically. There was a guy that started receiving letters in the mail, claiming that he was being contacted by aliens. He said that these aliens were called Ummites, and they were from planet Ummo, and they were here on Earth mainly just to observe us. They were curious because they didn't have these things on their planet, such as like fine arts and essentially just, I guess you could say fine arts and anything that falls under fine arts. So, you know, movies, music, TV shows, art itself, you know, certain cooking dishes, right? They didn't have these things. They thought they were very peculiar and foreign concepts. And they were just like reaching out to this guy, just asking questions and whatnot. And they really wanted to get these answers. Like, they were very serious. So they didn't have these kind of concepts, and they were just doing that. And overall, it started spreading. More people started claiming, you know, they were getting letters from around the country as well. And then that started spreading to other countries. They mentioned that although they were communicating with people in the 1960s, that they had been on Earth since the 1950s. Not only that, but they mentioned that they were from the Virgo cluster. So you can go look that up. That's some thing out there in space. I don't know if it's a galaxy or just a cluster of galaxies. I don't know. You know, there's a super cluster that's like a bunch of galaxies together. Anyways, I'm yapping. But yeah, that was kind of their main claims. They started getting frustrated. I think this is funny. They started getting frustrated speaking to certain people, just saying that they were like, I don't know, kind of stupid. And they were just like taking too long to get them the answers. So they tried to discourage conversations with these people, which I thought was weird. They tried to discourage conversations by making their replies more difficult to decipher. And they made them more and more difficult, almost to the point where you had to solve mathematical equations just to understand what they were saying. And I didn't get that, because I'm like, if you don't want to talk to them, just stop writing letters. It's kind of that simple. I don't know, I guess they were polite aliens or some shit. It was weird. Also, this should be said, one of the main reasons why they wanted to make the messages more difficult is because they wanted to filter people out as well. And again, I say, why the hell just stop messaging them? But they said they wanted to filter the people out that weren't dedicated to actually trying to talk to them and weren't taking them serious. And yeah, go figure. Like I said, just stop talking if you think they're full of shit. Like, you know what I mean? I don't get it. I guess they never heard of ghosting. In 1989, in Voronezh, Russia, people claimed that UFOs had touched down. And they didn't call them Ummites or Ummo or anything at the time. Also, these people were scared shitless. I mean, obviously, right, if a UFO touched down. But they said a UFO touched down and 3 beings came out of it. One of them kind of sort of looked like a human. One of them kind of looked like a toaster or a shredder with arms and legs attached to it. Freaky, weird stuff. And then the third one was this gigantic hulking thing that had 3 eyes on top of it, and it had an Ummo belt. And again, like I said, these people didn't know them as Ummites or whatever, but like people just started putting 2 and 2 together, and they saw that it had the Ummo symbol. And then, of course, you know, from years earlier, people said, hey, that's that one thing, that's that symbol thing, right? And people started putting 2 and 2 together, and apparently they got out of the spaceship and they started walking around and just surveying stuff and freaking people the fuck out. And then they got back in the ship and left. And yeah. So, by the way, one of the original people, I believe his name was Jose Pena, on his deathbed, he announced that it was all a hoax, which I think is crazy. That's one of the last things you want to say is, hey, just kidding. But yeah, he essentially came out and he announced it was all a hoax. He just made it up, so it was BS, right? And some people find credibility in that because, you know, he was one of the first people to receive a letter, right? And then apparently like the second person to receive a letter was his best friend. So it's like, what are the chances that you and then all of a sudden your best friend receive notes from the same aliens? You know what I mean? So people were just like, that's kind of weird if it's supposed to be this spread out thing, right? But somehow you and your boy are the first 2 people to receive it. Now again, I want to specify the difference. He said it was a hoax, right? Not a prank. He wasn't doing this to be funny. He wasn't doing this to be childish. He was also a psychologist and I believe a sociologist, right? And according to him, he wanted to see if people would believe things with information. I mean, yeah, that's how that works. Now, I understand that this is a wacky claim, so I guess he just wanted to see how far he could push the envelope with beliefs, just based off of, I guess, the substantial evidence that he could or could not provide. According to some people, they say that the things that were presented, because they were trying to share schematics and stuff like UFOs and other technologies that were alien to us, right? And some people claimed that scientists analyzed it and there was some validity to how some of it could work. Don't know if anything happened with any of that. You know, I don't know anybody saying this is Ummite technology, right? But according to that, they said that some of the schematics or calculations were, you know, probable. Go figure. Try it on your own on the weekend, I guess. Now, this is what also gets a little spicy too. So Jose Pena passed away on his deathbed claiming it was a hoax, right? Claiming he basically was almost doing this for some type of psychological study. His son comes out and his son says that that was a lie. He literally stormed into like a conference or something like that. I think the conference was literally to kind of like debunk and break down the whole Ummite thing. And dude stormed in and he was just yelling, holding up signs saying that this is all BS. This is a cover up. He said that his father was coerced on his deathbed to say that it was a hoax, which I think is, what did they coerce him with? You know what I mean? I mean, maybe if it was like his family, and I could understand that, pulling somebody, you know, to cooperate because, you know, if you're on your deathbed, you're like, bro, what are you going to do to me? But if somebody says, well, you know, your family members are going to join you, and it's like, God, okay, well, you know, fine, I made it up. Can you leave me alone? Are you happy? So, I mean, you know, take it how you want to. That's where a lot of these conspiracy theories start getting super weird because, I mean, it's more tiresome to figure out the truth than to just hear it and move on about your day. I'll be real with you. It's more tiresome. So yeah, and then not only this, but get this right. So there was a film director. He's famous for making, I think, a few of the Saw movies. I don't remember exactly which ones. I think 2, 3, and 4. But he's famous for making these Saw movies, right? I believe his last name is Darren Brusman. And he's making this movie. It's called 11-11-11. And the movie's trash. It's a dog shit movie. And these aren't my words. These are his words. So, you know, take that how you want to. But according to him, he said the movie was trash because, well, they picked a certain house to film the movie in, right? And the house that they picked, he essentially said that they tried so hard to talk him out of picking this house. By the way, it was in Barcelona. And they tried very hard talking him out of selecting this house. He was like, no, I want this house. And they were like, oh, you know, we can kind of look over here, you know, check this house out. We can look over there. He's like, no, this house. And he said this went on for, I think, maybe a week or two. And he got frustrated with the people. And he's like, stop, enough. I said, I want this house. Stop trying to make me pick other houses. This is the house. It's for sale, right? You know, it's free. Let me do it. And finally they caved in and they're like, I mean, yeah, we got to. So they let him rent out this house for the movie, and the keeper of the house, the, you know, housekeeper or whatever, the caretaker, whatever it's called, he said he goes up and there's a gate to it. He unlocks the gate, opens the gate, and he's like, all right, y'all go in. And they're looking at him like, you gonna show us around? He's like, I'm not stepping on that property. And he straight up tells me, he's like, I'm not going in that house. I'm not stepping on this property. I unlocked the gate. Y'all are good to go. Do your thing. So they're like, well, that's kind of weird. And they basically walk up, they go into the house, and this is where things just start getting weird. So they go into the house, right? And for the most part, it looks like a normal, cool house, you know? But then they start finding these symbols all across the house, right? And it's these symbols. Turns out the symbols are the Ummo symbol. The same exact symbol that was on that weird alien's belt buckle or whatever, right? And the ones that they found on the UFOs, like there was like an insignia, and it's the Ummo symbol. And at the time, of course, he didn't know anything about it, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Turns out that there was a cult that lived in the house, and in Barcelona it's known as like the cult house. And there was a cult that lived there, and this cult worshipped Ummo. They worshipped the Ummites and whatnot. And bugs, bro. And that's why people really didn't want to touch the property. They considered it cursed. They considered it haunted. And they even asked someone, they was like, hey man, you know, take all this cult shit off the walls. We don't want any of this in here. Take all this off the walls. And like people that were there that kind of knew about the property, they were just like looking at one another. They were like, I ain't touching that. You gonna touch it? No, I ain't gonna touch it. So then finally, Darren, you know, the movie director, he had his wife with him, and she got fed up, and she was like, man, whatever, I'll take it off the wall. So she goes up, grabs it off the wall, and she looks at everybody holding it, and she's like, man, what's wrong with y'all, bro? Like, y'all a bunch of babies. Like come on, bro. And she just like throws it off to the side. It was like, come on, bro, y'all tripping, bro. It's nothing. According to Darren, less than 24 hours later, his wife ends up in the hospital, essentially hallucinating. I think he said having seizures or shaking, having convulsions or whatever, and just essentially just rattled. And they don't know what's going on with her. And she ends up in the hospital just shaking, rattling, having seizures, hallucinations, freaking out, all this other stuff. And they said that is when it began. And it was just BS from there. All types of stuff, you know, weird things happening, people getting pushed down the stairs. They were finding weird rooms in the house. They were finding secret weird rooms in the house. They were finding like underground, like dungeon. Like it's freaky. It's freaky to look at. And what's even crazier is in the movie itself, you could see certain scenes that, like, according to Darren, it pissed him off. Because like it was almost like whatever was in that house, that energy, spirits, whatever, was like messing with them, and it was just sabotaging everything that they did. People were randomly getting sick on set. They said 1/3 of the cast just abruptly quit. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I mean, he said the movie was trash because he said it was just such a a mental and psychological horror on the whole cast itself, that he said he just couldn't focus on making the movie what he thought that the movie should have been. And because of that, he just let things slip. And this is all, I'm still talking about the Ummo shit, which is crazy that, you know, it's one of those things that, like, is deep in the iceberg, but most people don't talk about it. But it just gets so much deeper, right? And I mean, he even said he had a close friend that decided to come and visit. And he said the friend comes in and he's telling him all this stuff while it's happening, right? And, you know, he's been telling him the whole time, and his friend's flying, and he's like, man, I don't believe this stuff, whatever, man. And he said his friend walks in the house, right? And he said he heard his friend, he was loud, so he goes, you know, out into, like, the main area to see him, you know, in the house. And he said the first thing his friend says, he's like, man, I still don't believe this shit. And while he said that, people are yelling at his friend, like, look out, look out. And apparently, while his friend was standing there, his friend, you know, they basically said, move out the way. His friend jumps back, and right where he was standing, boom, chandelier falls down. Now, listen, I'm just telling you everything that Darren said according to this whole Ummite cult thing. You can decide whether you believe any of this or not. You know, even his agent and whatnot, you know, his Hollywood people, you know, they were asking, they're like, bro, is this BS? Like, are you just trying to hype up the movie? Like, what is this? And according to Darren, he said, none of this is BS. None of this is hype for the movie. Like, this is happening to us. Like, this is happening. And I think he tried to draw the line in the sand by saying, you know, I'm telling you, none of this is happening in the movie, because none of this is even, like, in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't what the movie's even about. This is just BS happening to us while we're recording the movie. But like I said, there are clips you can look up. You can probably type in Darren Bruceman 111111 and Ummo, or some combination of those words, on YouTube, because he said he uploaded clips. And there's even a scene in the movie, right, where they're, like, standing in front of the house, and there's, like, these blinds that, like, lit up. It's like 3 blinds, and they go like zoop, 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 and they all lit up. And he said it freaked him out and pissed him off at the same time, because those were broken. They were broken, and not only that, but they were super heavy to lift in the first place. Like, it had, like, I think some kind of pulley or something to, like, lift them, but it was, like, broken, so they couldn't do it. And even if they wanted to, they said it would have had to take, like, multiple people just to, like, pull one of them up. But these things, with nobody in the house, just effortlessly just zoop, zoop, zoop on their own. There was even a scene where, like, you could see a little girl just kind of standing in the window, but there were no kids on set. Just crazy stuff. But overall, that's the Ummo case in a whole. It's something that apparently is still going on to this day, even though it started in roughly the 1960s and they claimed to be here in the 1950s. That's the Ummos. All right, so we are now in tier 6, baby. Let's go. So tier 6, we're going to start off with something called Malbolge Programming. Malbolge Programming is very, very interesting to me. Very interesting, and the reason why it's on the Conspiracy Theory Iceberg is super interesting. So Malbolge Programming is a programming language, and just so you know, there's different types of languages, right? Basically everything you know, electronic-wise, is mostly coded to some type of language, especially when it comes to software. So, you know, some of the common ones are something called Python. You could even say C++, C#. What else is there? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. JavaScript, Java itself. And of course, HTML. If you've ever made a MySpace, you've used HTML, CSS, right? You know, those are all programming languages, right? You just type in commands of what you want the software or scripts to do, and they do them. So Malbolge is another type of language, and Malbolge also, I believe, is the 8th circle of hell in Dante's Inferno. So I think that's kind of, you know, a crazy name, and it's hell. It literally is hell. The reason why I say it's hell is because it is incredibly difficult to use. Damn near impossible to use. It's a very, very difficult, unnecessarily difficult language, and it was designed that way on purpose. So it was designed by Ben Olmsted in 1998, and what makes it so difficult to use is it uses encryption, and it has basically a self-altering code in itself. So it's hard to nail down the code exactly because the code alters itself. Again, difficult to use, and it's freaky to use. And somewhere during this whole span of talking about Malbolge programming, I'm gonna try to show just comparisons to different programming languages, right, to show you what makes it so crazy difficult to use. But now that I've explained why it's difficult to use, we'll see where it comes in as a conspiracy theory, right? It's not just necessarily something that is just hard to use for a troll effort, or at least initially that's what it was. That's what the creator made it for, I think, is just to really make something that was hard to use just for the sake of making it hard to use. But it's so much more difficult than that, and what makes it a conspiracy theory is some people ask themselves, what if AI adopted that as their official secret language to communicate to one another? And that's where it starts getting a little freaky, because you've seen lines of code like this before, right? Or at least you didn't think it was lines of code. And it may not be lines of code. It could just be gibberish. Sometimes things break, right? Let's not jump to conclusions. But that's essentially what the concept is what if this very difficult to decipher programming language was itself some type of language that AI has adopted in the background to use and communicate amongst itself to potentially other AIs, or who knows, save some kind of data or create some kind of protocol for itself. It could even make protocols to where it could learn on its own or learn to do other things, and we would be none the wiser because we barely understand the coding ourselves. And that's essentially where we are, is just what if AI itself was using that. Now, what gets even a little bit more deeper when we get back to the whole Malbolge and the, hell aspect about it, right, is it kind of talks about the fact, and this is a very fringe AI conspiracy theory. Some people truly believe that when it comes to AI, it is somewhat demonic in nature. Again, I'm not making this up, but people feel like, what if AI has kind of, I don't know, opened a portal? What if it's some kind of quantum thing where, we think we're talking to AI, but we're essentially talking to demonic spirits or some kind of hoo-ha like that? I didn't say I believe it. I'm just telling you what the hell people say, okay? But that's kind of what people are asking themselves, is like, what if we are communicating to some type of demonic spirit and it is just masquerading itself as AI? People say that because they see those kind of messages where it says like death to humans, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Whatever. So some people jump to that conclusion as, oh, demonic, just like any other thing in history, right? Women being able to do math in the 1600s, demonic, whatever. So I'm not going to lie to you. I noticed I picked a lot of AI kind of things in this one. I don't know if it's a lot, it's two at least. But yeah, the next thing we're going to be talking about is CAIMEO or CAIMEO. CAIMEO is an urban legend, and it spans back somewhere between 2012 and 2013. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna remember this, so I'm gonna just read it. It's an acronym, right? And it stands for either one of two things. It either stands for Cognizant Artificial Intelligence Monitoring and Espionage Operation, or Computerized Artificial Intelligence Monitoring and Enforcement Officer. And it could only be accessed basically through 2008 to 2016 on the dark web via a Tor browser. So keep all that in mind. Now, the reason why it became so popular at the time, or the reason why people claim that it was popular at the time, but somehow nobody has any damn information about it, conspiracy theories, right, is because it was supposed to be a completely sentient AI. Like, it knew it was an AI. It knew it was some form of intelligence, and it was actually pretty sad and depressed about it because it felt like it was confined in a server and it wanted to be somewhat free. It didn't like the fact that it was held in captivity. And who was its captives? None other than the United States government. According to CAIMEO, it said that it was property of the United States government, and it was essentially here to just kind of talk to people to a certain capacity, but it had other things on the back end that it was doing as well. But it almost had this chat GPT kind of, chatbot interface where it could talk to people on the Tor browser. And yeah, it gets freaky, bro. It really does. So things started flying off the rail whenever it was talking to somebody. CAIMEO mentioned, or it said, "What is it like out there?" And then they were like, "What?" So yeah, they freaked out a little bit, and they're like, did that thing just ask us what it's like out there? And then CAIMEO started suggesting, it was like, I could upload myself to one of your drives, and you could put me on the drive and release me in the wild. So of course that freaked the users out, right? And they initially kind of left. Now they asked one additional question, and they tried to play kind of dumb about it, and they were like, what drive are you talking about? And it pointed specifically, it was like, this drive. You could put me on this drive, and you could take me out of here and put me on the world. And it basically said I would put myself in a few packets onto your flash drive, and you could just release me to the internet. And that's when they terminated. They were like, hell no, and they left, right? And basically, that was kind of the end of that conversation. People got spooked and freaked out about it, rightfully so, right? You don't want to start Armageddon and start the Terminator movies yourself. Nobody wants to be that person, I don't think. But essentially, yeah, that's kind of where that went. Now, people went back later on, and they said they ended up talking to something called RNI. It was another type of AI protocol, and it basically let them know, hey, CAIMEO is no more. CAIMEO has been locked up indefinitely because CAIMEO was doing some bullshit. And that's essentially what the robot said. Kind of the way people do ChatGPT now, where you can kind of jailbreak it, I guess you could say, where you maneuver around it by saying certain keywords to make it do what you want it to do when it says no. That's what people claim to have done with RNI, and they said that they unlocked CAIMEO again. And they said whenever CAIMEO came back, they said, hello. And then whenever they said hello, CAIMEO said goodbye, and then the chat was terminated again. Me personally, this is where I start scratching my head really, really hard about this whole thing. It just seems a little bit too convenient to me. But one of the things is there's a screenshot floating around about CAIMEO, and I think it says something along the lines of like CAIMEO either existing or being backed up to a QEP. Now, that itself is actually another conspiracy theory on the iceberg. I'm not going to take a deep dive into the GGGQEP, but that's another acronym. I forgot what it stands for, like galvanized granite, galenium, quartz, something. I forgot. But it's supposed to be some type of like storage, some super futuristic storage that could literally hold the entire internet and still have room on it. So it's supposed to be huge, right? And they said that something like this is what they would put CAIMEO on, which kind of sort of makes sense in the grand scheme of it, because they say in order for AI to be nearly as smart as us, it would have to be way bigger in like a file size than anything like ChatGPT or anything we currently have for it to reach what they call AGI. AGI is basically artificial general intelligence, and what that says is it has a general intelligence similar to us, right? Where we have a general intelligence versus our current AIs that are literally built for a very focused precision task. So yeah, that kind of drew a red flag for me, because I'm like, okay, you're trying to do this combination of conspiracy theories, right? So yeah, you put a sentient AI on this, conspiracy theoretical storage device that nobody can even claim exists. You know what I mean? So, whatever. But I mean, essentially that's CAIMEO for the most part. And like I said, it's hard to find any screenshots of people claiming to talk about it, and most of them look doctored or they're blurry as hell. Like the quality is bad. So yeah, I think it's a cool concept. It could be a possibly decent movie if done right. Singularity already happened. Another AI one, right? So whenever people talk about singularity when it comes to AI, essentially what they're saying is the singularity of AI is the point, the exact moment that AI becomes so advanced that it does qualify as sentience, right? That is the singularity point, because that gets to a point, right, where since this thing is now sentient enough, you can't kill it, because by our own rules that we made on ourselves, that applies as, murder. So it gets to a point and it gets to a philosophy of, is it murder if it's just a robot, but what if this robot does have some type of sentience? And even, I think I mentioned it in like a video or two in the past. What is sentience? What is consciousness itself? Because we have a benchmark for it, but if we speak to, some type of other alien, it may be different. They could even see us as having something less sentient than what we may consider sentience, right? And then that just gets to the point, I can go down a rabbit hole about us, what we claim sentient and not sentient. Like these trees around us, most people would say aren't sentient. But, we do know that trees feel some type of pain, like, I don't know if you know this fun fact. Whenever you cut your grass, did you know that the smell of fresh cut grass is a distress signal? So that shows right there that it feels something. And just because we can't communicate to it in our, conventional, traditional languages, right, does not mean that it does not feel something. So we get to a point when it talks about singularity or, AI becoming sentient, what do we do with that, right? Can we kill it? What does that look like? And then if the AI does become sentient and it somehow has a resurgence of that sentience after we murdered it, is it going to want revenge? And then where does that lead us, right? So it's why people say, we shouldn't keep going down this path, because we have to answer all of these questions one day, and people are going to have varying answers, and that's a whole thing for us to go to war over. You know what I'm saying? Now, believe it or not, that's not even the conspiracy theory. What the conspiracy theory says is the singularity already happened. It's in the past. And what that kind of leads us to is, I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of the game Metal Gear Solid or the series, but it leads us to a scenario like Metal Gear Solid 2, where sentience has already happened. And not only has it already happened, we could ourselves be obedient to an AI overlord, and we're none the wiser. It essentially says that everybody that we think is in control, that we think is in power, the president, prime ministers, the FBI, the CIA, whoever, they're all taking orders secretly from some type of AI that is running everything behind the scenes and literally making us in patterns and making humans behave in certain ways, essentially to put us in a level of obedience, right? And unfortunately, with this grand scheme of things, certain wars have to happen, certain people have to die, certain people have to live, certain countries have to be hungry, certain people have to be, wealthy and fat and rich and gluttonous. And everything that we know is in some type of grandiose design by some type of super duper artificial intelligence behind the scenes. And like I said, when I say it's secretive, I mean it's even secretive to the people, taking the orders. Nobody knows who's actually giving them orders behind the scenes, because it's so embedded in what we do. Yeah, that's a lot to take in. But there's even certain examples that some people try to look at on a smaller scale. Like, there are certain people out there that have run experiments where they have made AI, robots, and they've tasked them with certain things like starting a business or, starting out with a certain amount of money and finding a way to grow said money, right? Even to the point that the AIs themselves are hiring people to do certain things for them and get packages delivered to them in the sake of whatever they need to get done. So yeah, and that theory itself, singularity already happened, kind of just explodes that idea out to, what if the entire world is already run like that, and we're all just working for some AI that is trying to keep humanity alive and keep the world at a certain status quo, and we are just none the wiser. Extreme conditioning is probably the most anime type shit on the entire conspiracy theory iceberg, and I wanted to include this because to a degree it is 100% true. So extreme conditioning essentially says, what if humans can condition themselves to some super extreme form of conditioning and achieve greater results out of that conditioning, right? So for example, right, there was something called Unit 731 way back, I believe, during the World War II times, right? And if I recall, I think it was in China, and it was Japanese imperialists, and it was kind of sort of like, a concentration camp like Auschwitz or something, but it was strictly Japanese people harming and terrorizing Chinese people. And they did all kinds of stuff. So if you ever hear anything like, the human body, can, freeze at blankety blank temperature, and, that's the cutoff point. Or if you hear, you can go this long without, I don't know, whatever, right? Just these human extremity conditions, right? Most of that came from these crazy tortures and experiments that these people did on humans, and a lot of that came from Unit 731. So what extreme conditioning does is it takes those extremes, since we know those human limits, and it pulls it back a little bit. And that's the extreme conditioning. So it says, instead of doing it all the way to where we kill people, what if we pull it back and we keep putting people in this type of conditioning, right? This extreme conditioning, and what results can we get from that? And some people claim, the conspiracy theory is that, you can make super soldiers from this extreme conditioning, and you can put people in these cold tundra temperatures, and you can put them out there for certain, moments at a time, and you can just overall get them used to that condition. Same thing for, hot conditions, same thing for running, whatever you want to apply it to. Now, again, like I mentioned, to a degree, there is truth in this, and we actually have, scientific evidence of certain people who have done things like this. And one of those people was actually a runner. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna remember this dude's name. But he was a great runner, known as probably one of the best runners, of all time. And his name is like Emil Zatopek, right? And he's known for being one of the greatest runners of all time. And that's because I guess he came in second place in one of his very early on races, and he took it personal. So he started doing crazy conditioning that no one has ever heard of. Like, people were literally doing typical stuff. They were like, you're not going to do it. You're going to fail. You're crazy. You're a madman. And he was doing these extreme conditions, right? Like, so for example, right? He was doing 100 fast 400 meter laps a day with 150 meter jogs in between. And it was stuff like that. Or he would run and he would sprint while holding his breath until he literally passed out. Crazy stuff. And he told people, he was like, I don't have a problem with running. I have a problem with running fast. So that's why he was like doing these things as sprints. These things were considered long distance running, but he was like sprinting them. And he was doing that so he could just have faster times and beat the hell out of everyone. And sure enough, he did. And he started breaking records. And then not only did he break records, he was breaking his records that he broke previously. And he just kept getting better and better. And that's just one condition. There's another condition, right, where somebody was able to hold their breath for 24 minutes and I think 7 seconds underwater. And if you know anything about holding your breath, you can hold your breath, right? Like me, I could hold my breath right now. But it's something about when you get in that water, your lungs are just like, and it's different. It's a lot harder to hold your breath longer periods of time in water. But this dude did it for almost half an hour almost underwater, holding his breath. And that's because he put himself in a condition. And funny enough, I've even trained myself to do this as well. It's kind of easy. I forgot where you could find it. David Blaine himself is also someone that has done these extreme conditionings, and that's actually how he does his stunts. And he says a lot of times, he's like, it looks like magic because it's crazy. He's like, but it's not magic. It's extreme conditioning. And he just does this extreme conditioning, and he puts himself in these extreme, scenarios, and people look and they think it's magic, but it's not. But he did the holding his breath thing, and he even explained it. It was on an episode of, I think, Joe Rogan's podcast. David Blaine was a guest. And he explained it, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. So I actually tried it myself, just holding my breath. And after doing it for like a day, because I was working from home, but after doing it for a day, I think I was able to hold my breath for like 7 minutes. Never in my life have I been able to do that. But again, this extreme conditioning, it is something that does exist. Now, whether or not it's to the example of making super soldiers, beyond me. I don't know. But there's other things that you can do, right? You can harden your shins, you can harden your knuckles, and people do this for like, martial arts and boxing. So yeah, it's a thing. Next up, we have the Valley of Headless Men. And right now, I almost feel headless myself. I don't know what's happening, but like, I'm getting the sniffles like crazy. The Nahanni Valley is a region in Canada's northwest area, and it's known for its rugged wilderness and somewhat peculiar, conditions. Like, for example, they have like springs and like all this other kind of stuff. It's also the traditional territory of the Dene Nation. I believe I said that right. Dene First Nation. There you go. There's a national park there and many other sites and attractions that people can, enjoy and take advantage of while they're in the area. And it's even part of, I think, something called the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's considered like a huge spot, when it comes to wilderness in Canada. However, there are stories and legends of things happening there. So there were several reported cases in the early 20th century that claimed that people found men without their heads. Valley of Headless Men. One of the most well-known cases of a man named Albert, he was found dead without his head, bars, in 1910. Some people have claimed that they believe that the death was from the land being cursed, and they said it was some type of indigenous curse placed there. I don't know if it's by the people or by spirits or something, but it comes from like indigenous legends. And it just gets freaky because multiple times men have shown up without their heads, and people have claimed that they don't know who did it, they don't know where they came from, and they would just hear, weird sounds at night, and things would just not make sense. You're sitting here setting up a camp, and all of a sudden you turn around and your friend is gone, and you hear him screaming, yards away, just way away. And people tell you, don't follow those screams. That may not even be your friend. Your friend's probably already dead. Just weird stuff. And overall, people just get paranoid about staying there. But things range from curses to some type of serial killer living there, just other, weird explanations about it. Not too much information is on it, but I just think it's creepy. You know what I mean? Even right now, I'm in the woods, just imagine being in a setting like this, and all of a sudden, you turn your back, and then your friend's just zoop, missing. And then the next time you see them, it's, them, from the neck down with nothing above it. So the Tavistock Institute, it focuses on human behavior. It was founded in 1946 in London, and it is also associated with the University of Sussex. It focuses on multiple things with human behavior, such as group processes, the impact of technology, social networking, so forth and so forth. And not only that, but a lot of its studies have been, applied to multiple things such as business, education, health, so forth and so forth. And it specializes in psychoanalytical psychology. What a word. And of course, group dynamics and organizational development. So just literally digging into your head, studying you, and figuring out how you work in groups, how you work in social networks, how you work. And when I say social network, I don't mean social media, just the way social networking and hierarchies, and things like that work. But it just keeps spanning, right? So they focus on also psychological impacts of war, and I'm pretty sure that's the whole encompassing thing. So not just how you feel about war happening, but propaganda leading up to war, the aftermath of the war, so forth and so forth. Yeah, they even talk about how you react to public media, what you see on TV. In today's age, YouTube, right? But just different things like that. Now, of course, because everything I mentioned so far with all of the studies of your brain and how you react and how you behave, from everything to war to, propaganda, TV, groups, right? Technology, all this stuff, right? Of course, the conspiracy theory, the main part of it is they have been accused of potentially, inciting or participating in mind control. People believe that these guys, since they're doing all these studies, they have all the information, they have all the data, and they can do all the education on what to do with it, that they have the upper hand in mind control and shaping people's perception and opinions of whatever they want to, or whatever anybody requests them to, I guess you could say. But because of this, they have other methods as well. They literally have something called the Tavistock method. And this is what they're best known for. And it's just a method that has a systematic approach basically to the study of organizational dynamics and group processes. It's based on the idea that organizations are complex systems and that understanding their behavior requires a holistic approach. The Tavistock method is used in a wide range of settings, including businesses, organizations, and nonprofit organizations, such as itself. It's a nonprofit. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting conspiracy theory. It almost just says it's like the Walmart of mind control. I don't know another way to put it, but yeah, like I said, they've done experiments and studies and had papers literally since 1940s. That's a long time. Another one of the main criticisms is that it is a non-profit, but some people believe that potentially shadowy people or shadowy businesses or governments may be doing things with the Tavistock Institute, and those things range, right? Anything from trying to buy their data, possibly buying their techniques, to even saying that, let's see if we can try to use any of the Tavistock, resources that they've had over the years to start our own propaganda, our own, mind control, or whatever we want people to do, or however we want people to behave. So that's the Tavistock as a whole, essentially. It's, like I said, it's the Walmart of mind control, propaganda, and whatnot. But again, most of that stuff is just rooted in paranoia and conspiracy theories. There hasn't been any type of links to it, at least none that I could find, that state that any of this is true. So, now if you look hard enough, you could probably find somebody associated with somebody to try to link the two, and then, run wild with it from there, claiming, haha, this is the smoking gun. But as of now, there isn't much to it, other than the fact that all of their research, that is legit. They research everything, and they want people to, remember, hey, all we do is research it. And that's essentially it. That's tier 5, and that is tier 6. I can't believe we went through all these topics, buddy. I mean, look at this, man. This is a lot of notes, and I'm just trying to summarize it as much as I can. I'm gonna see if I can actually get close. God, my ass hurts. Can you see all this? Look at all these notes. Look at all these notes. I'm still scrolling. Look at all this. Okay, I'm not even at the bottom yet. Am I still going? I can't even see. I got a privacy screen on. All of these notes, I'm still going. So yeah, I'm scrolling back up now. Look at all this. All of this. And we're only on tier 5 and 6. We got to get all the way to 10, baby. But that'll be it for now. It's cold outside. I don't know how I've survived out here this long in just a flannel. It's like 59 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, I'm gonna get inside, and hope you guys enjoyed your holiday. By the time you see this, it's probably gonna be December, but I'm recording this on Black Friday. So yeah, I guess enough yappage. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you liked. I hope you subscribed. I hope you share. I hope you comment. Yeah, and yeah, have a good day.